Bam. Okay. It's talking to you. Oh. Okay. So first, thanks for inviting me out. This is so awesome. This place is amazing. So thanks for holding the space, and then thanks to all the guests for coming. I'm a huge health nerd, and I love talking about this stuff. So when other people show up and want to listen, my wife's like, "Oh, thank God. Go talk to somebody else. Like, no, take all the time you need." So it just creates a nice balance. And I think a lot of this stuff should be common knowledge. I mean, if this information was given in high school, middle school, into college, people understood how their body works, the thing they wake up with every day, it'd be a whole lot easier to take care of it, to create societies that had places like this that were just more of a common thing, right? Take a longer lunch break, you come here, you hang out, and then you go back in afterwards. Driving in Texas, everything's kind of really far away. So, if you live close enough, but we had, at my wedding, we had a little cold plunge. It was in Missouri, so it was pretty hot. It was in the summer, and so you could jump in there, but just one of those, like, it's fun, it's interactive, it helps create a lot of, like, mental stimulation and stuff like that I'll go through. This is the part that I usually don't go through a lot of detail, but it's like my credentials, because I could be anyone up here and just like, I've seen the internet, so I know stuff. But I do have a Ph.D. in biochemistry and molecular biology. I was funded by NASA to study how proteins are regulated in microgravity and stress. What you could think of it being the same way as senescence, right? Just bed rest, laying, not moving at all. Turns out that gravity and lifting weights stimulates every single one of our cells to be active to do things. You can think of the cell like an entire city. So cities have roads, they have bridges, buildings have structure. And inside our cell we have these cytoskeleton, which are all that structure. You could think of, have you ever seen a video of like DNA dividing? You see all these little polymers grabbing onto the DNA and pulling it across. Those are polymers that, just like our roads, that are providing structure to move things, to transport. But inside the cell, they're constantly breaking down and building back up so the cell can be adaptable. We've got plenty of construction here, but it's months worth of construction, where inside of a cell, it could be a few seconds and it breaks the whole bridge down and then starts to build it back up. So it's a lot more dynamic. But every time you get up and you exercise, you lift something that's kind of heavy, or you try to do like a one-leg squat holding onto something, you're stimulating all those cells and that cytoskeleton to become stronger. And it turns out that those roads are necessary for all of your cells to work. So in my opinion, exercise is kind of non-negotiable. You should every day do something where you just kind of get breathing heavy. So that's the big takeaway of 6 years of a PhD, is you should move, and if you go into space, you've got to move a whole lot more. I also had one of my committee members who has been studying heat shock proteins for 25 years, his entire career. He started at MIT in his PhD, and then all 25 years he was studying that. And these proteins are unique because they help other proteins refold. Like you get sick and you get a fever, and your body heats up. Your human cells can tolerate a little more temperature, which is causing your proteins to unfold a little. And then these heat shock proteins can go and grab onto it and put them back together, while all the bacteria or the viral proteins don't have anyone to come in and clean up. So they just get hot and they're like, okay, I'm done for, they can't function. While your human cells make these heat shock proteins and they go in and they start refolding things. Or they can say, oh, man, I'm so tired of having to walk all the way up. I'm finally just gonna clean this up. I'm just gonna do some spring cleaning. I'm gonna take this thing, I'm gonna scoot it back, I'm gonna move that out to the garage and make the cell more efficient. So the idea of increasing your temperature or decreasing your temperature are ways that tell your body, hey, it's time to clean up. Here's something that's finally annoying you enough to do something about it. Because when you're in the cold, what are you thinking about? Right now, the cold, right? You're not like, what am I gonna make for dinner later? You're like, ooh, you're in the moment. It's focusing. And it's kind of doing that same thing to yourself. Let's take care of all the things that are really important. If you've got some heavy metals or some waste or some cellular stuff that's not, you've just kind of been putting off, let's focus on that. And ultimately, that's what we are, just a big bag of cells. I'll actually get to that in a second. More or less, this is just saying that during my postdoc, I was at a national lab. I worked on a lot of heavy metal and critical materials stuff, a lot of biomass from the ocean. So the ocean has a lot of arsenic and cadmium and heavy metals, which are eaten by the algae and then the fish. And sometimes we take fish that are way too ugly to sell in the store and we grind it up and turn it into protein, and then we feed that to our cows and our chickens. These heavy metals, they're on the periodic table. Unless you're doing fusion or fission, they're not going anywhere. So that transfers from organism to organism to organism. And then here you are, you're eating some chicken that was fed some fish that ate some algae from the ocean or contaminated water. And those heavy metals transfer all the way through to your body. We were trying to use biology's need for these different types of metals to separate them for critical material recovery. So all the stuff that's in our smart electronics, to separate that out from the arsenic or the iron so we could get those rare earth elements. But I did a lot of research looking at how when you have arsenic show up in your body, it'll actually kick out or displace the mineral that's supposed to be in the protein, and now the protein doesn't work. The reason this is so scary is because if you have a genetic mutation, it means that every single one of your proteins don't work. If you have heavy metal toxicity, it means some proportion of those proteins that have the heavy metal in them are making the proteins not work. So heavy metal toxicity can become just as severe as having a genetic mutation where your proteins don't work, but it's caused by diet or the inability to clear those out. Luckily, sauna is great at helping your body just kick stuff out through sweat because your skin's one of your primary detox organs. In my undergrad, I did a lot of cancer metabolism, nutraceuticals. I was an analytical chemist at a brewery, which I thought was going to be the easiest job ever. But the amount of dangerous chemicals I worked with was just insane. It was pouring acids and bases together and mixing all this other stuff in fume hoods and heating it. It's like all this stuff you're not supposed to do in chemistry class, I had to do. In any case, and then I'm a big health nerd. So I used to run a lot of marathons. First I did bodybuilding, so I was trying to get as big and cut as possible. And then I started running really far, which those two don't really jive. And now I'm married to an acrobat. So 4 or 5 times here in Austin, there's this whole acrobatic community. We just walk up to other people and they'll like do handstands on you. We're like crawl on my shoulders, and then we're like panning them to other people. So it's a very, yeah, it's just different. It's different, but it's fun because if you're healthy and you take care of yourself, you can still play, you can do things, martial arts or just, walking and not falling. And if you do, kind of catching yourself and feeling like Spider-Man versus breaking something. So yeah, that's me. So who wants to guess why we actually eat? And it's not because things taste good.
Fuel your body.
What?
To fuel your body.
To fuel and nourish. Replacement parts, right? Sun donated some photons, so that allowed plants to make a bond between atoms, to take CO2 and carbon-carbon bond. Next thing you know, you've got a sugar, protein, so on and so forth. And then we eat those plants, or eat the things that eat the plants. We break those bonds, and then we use that to make energy or as building material. So in essence, when we eat, all of our carbohydrates, our breads, our proteins, our fats, the polyphenols in plants, most of these compounds get broken down to their building blocks, their Legos, then they're absorbed, and then they're in our circulation. They enter into a cell, and then the cell takes those building materials and it builds new stuff or converts them into other things to try to build up. This is really important because you need essential amino acids. You have to get them from your diet. There's 20 Legos, 20 amino acids. 9 of them have to come from your diet. Your body can't make them. It can convert the 9 into the others, but it can't convert back. You have essential fatty acids, where there's some lipids or fats of a certain length and characteristic that your body just can't make. You have to get those from your diet. And then there's minerals, which again, unless you're doing fusion or fission inside your body, you're not making those. There's no essential carbohydrate. Breads just taste good. So the food pyramid 100% has been upside down. You don't need 6 to 11 servings of bread. Your body can take protein and it can take fat and turn it into carbohydrate and to sugars, which it does every single night when you're asleep. You go into ketosis, it quits using all the sugars you're not eating, and then it takes your fat and turns it back into sugar and circulates it through your body. Post-exercise, carbohydrates can help, like refuel and tell your body you've got enough energy to build muscle, but it's not necessary. So it's one of those like misnomers about stuff. But in general, you take all your food, you break it down, and then it goes into your circulation, goes into your cells, and then your cells absorb them mostly here in your intestine. And then at that point, either goes into a vein to get transported, or it can go through your lymphatic system. Who's familiar with the lymphatic system? Yeah, some fat and then some waste material. So your heart pumps so that way your blood can move through your body. Your lymphatic system doesn't have a pump like a heart. Yeah, you have to physically move, right? So moving in the morning, doing squats, doing calf raises throughout the day, the contraction of your muscle is what stimulates the lymphatic system so you can move things around. So when I look at someone that's got, you know, their fat lipid profiles, you can tell how sedimentary somebody is, because the more they move, the more they're using that fat and putting it in new places. But in any case, so again, like I was saying, exercise is kind of non-negotiable. You have to move because that's how your body pumps the lymphatic system. I say most of this to further highlight this idea of the cell's like a city, and cities talk to each other. So we know that we've got veins that touch the side of a cell, and that's how the nutrients get into the cell. We've got our lymphatic system, which can take materials and pump it out or bring it in, but not every single cell in your body is touching a vein or a capillary. So that means that your cells have to be able to talk to each other. When your body's inflamed, how well do you think your cells talk to each other? Right? If you're expecting a paycheck and I give you some money and you hand it down and you decide to keep the rest and not hand it over, you don't get paid. The same thing happens with your cells. If there's inflammation, if they're missing the nutrients that are needed, if they don't have the cytoskeleton structure to pass that information down, then nutrients here can't make it over. And so I made this image to have less mitochondria, because the idea is that it's getting less nutrients, so it's not processing, it's not doing as much. Now, you mentioned mitochondria before we got started, which was awesome. Mitochondria isn't just the powerhouse of the cell, it does tons of stuff. But how many mitochondria do you think are in any given cell? 500,000. That's a lot. That's a tremendous amount. Not that many. But yeah, anywhere from 10 to a few thousand in a cell. So the cell has one nucleus, one pocket of DNA, and then the mitochondria, there's thousands of them, and that can change based on different factors. The more that you exercise, the more mitochondria you have. Think about chicken and turkey. Where's the dark meat? It's on the wings, it's on the legs. Well, what are the wings and legs doing? They're moving. They're moving. Because they're moving, they need to bring in more oxygen to power that movement. To power that movement, they have more mitochondria. Mitochondria have a lot of heme iron. Heme iron, what's rust look like? It's kind of brown. So dark meat's darker because it has more mitochondria and it has different types of fat that are more accessible, whereas the white meat, like you look at a steak and you see all that marbled white meat, that fat's just hanging out. That's because the cow wasn't moving very much and it just started eating and eating and then just depositing fat into those cells, but the cells weren't active. They're not doing a whole lot, so it stays white because there's no mitochondria in it. But the dark meat has more mitochondria because it's moving more. So exercising and stimulating stress in your body can create what's called, it's more or less biogenesis for your mitochondria, where you can make more. So to me, this is really exciting because you're like, well, I started working out and I'm not feeling any better. If you keep working out, if you keep doing stuff, it gets easier and easier because your cells just need time to adapt. It's like you see someone going to the gym, and if they go to the gym and they lift and they eat well, they will build muscle. Like, I've never seen anyone that's really like put their all to it and not built muscle, right? So the takeaway here is that inflammation can prevent cell communication, and certain activities and foods can help increase mitochondria in a given cell, and then also increase the connectivity and the communication between cells.
What foods would increase mitochondria? The exercise would do it.
Yeah, exercise do it, and there are quite a few foods. Again, if you're getting all the essentials, you're getting enough minerals, you're getting enough essential fatty acids and proteins. Those are the big drivers. Insulin and carbohydrates can also trigger it if it's at the right time, if you're active. So they always say that, you know, when you break your fast, your breakfast or lunch really should be the bigger meals of the day. And what I typically do is some sort of exercise right before I eat that big meal. So if I've already been to the gym and then I'm eating my breakfast or lunch afterwards, great. But if not, like yesterday I went to the gym and did a bunch of chest and arms. So today, before I ate lunch, I just did a whole bunch of push-ups. Not an exercise, but I wanted to tell my body, hey, this is where I want you to put the food. I'm stimulating these muscles that need a bit of repair because I worked them yesterday. I went on a hike, I was gardening, I was doing something that worked my body, and now I'm feeling kind of sore somewhere. Maybe I slept wrong, or my neck was, I guess, mad. So I would do something before I ate that big meal to help signal this is where I want to put that food. But yeah, I've got some foods I can talk about later. But the idea is that you've got different foods and supplements and activity and a lot of modalities here. Okay, so this is my rant on mitochondria, and then we're going to get into the modalities. So like I said, mitochondria isn't just the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria is a chemical factory. So anything you can do to make more mitochondria is really the sweet spot of what you want. Turns out that red light, sauna, and cold plunge, and massage all stimulate new mitochondria or mitochondria to become more efficient. So this is like my harping thing of like, you've got the cell, all these mitochondria are giving more instructions to the nucleus than the nucleus gives to the mitochondria, and the mitochondria are ultimately driving how much energy you have, how much stress is being produced, your antioxidant ability. So if we can focus on diets and foods that have more mitochondria in it, which whole foods, right, all plants, all animals have the mitochondria. If you take something out of a package, probably have the mitochondria taken out because mitochondria shorten shelf life because they're more reactive. So eating whole foods is one way to get more mitochondria in your body. But mitochondria, healthy doses of stress, so being cold for a minute, being a little hot, exercise, certain foods, microbiome byproducts, so like eating a pomegranate, certain compounds in the pomegranate feed your gut bacteria. The gut bacteria then make compounds like urolithin A, which goes to the mitochondria and says, hey, let's become more efficient, let's divide, let's grow. So your gut bacteria also feed into the healthy state of your mitochondria and all the cells in your body. They make ATP, all the heme that's in your blood that helps you transport oxygen, your cytochromes. The mitochondria generate the first step to make cholesterol, which is 18 steps. It's a very intensive step. It kicks the cholesterol out. When it comes back in, that's what kickstarts your sex hormones. So all of your estrogen, your testosterone, your progesterone, that all comes from the mitochondria saying, hey, let's go ahead and make some more of these long distance signaling molecules so we can communicate, we can have better regulation. That all starts in the mitochondria. If the mitochondria is stressed, it's not going to make as many. Other sex hormones, peptides, which is a big thing right now. Everyone's talking about peptides. Peptides are also produced in the mitochondria, and a lot of endogenous peptides that you take stimulate the mitochondria to then give the intended response. Autophagy is spring cleaning, right? So that's, you've been eating a lot of, let's say, seed oils. Seed oils can build into a cell membrane, and it makes it really fluid. Well, then when you get hot, all of a sudden it becomes too fluid and the cell's like, whoa, whoa, everything's moving around, I can't work with this. I need to do autophagy. I need to take some of these omega-6s out, and if I have omega-3s, I can put them in, or put some saturated fats in there to make it behave a little more solid. Because all of your membranes, they're bags of fat, and you need to have some flexibility, but not too much. So just spring cleaning, that's autophagy. Apoptosis is when the cell's like, it's done for. So apoptosis, again driven by the mitochondria, says, let's donate this, let's tear this down, let's give this back to whoever, this goes to the dump, this goes to storage, and it just recycles the entire cell. This is also what happens in a healthy scenario if you start to get cancer. Your body will recognize it and it'll kill the cell through a slowed, controlled process. All of your inflammation is caused by an angry oxygen inside of the mitochondria that gets released. You can think of this like a magnet. That oxygen has a charge on it. So if you've ever had a really strong magnet and you need it close to something metal, it'll just pull over and it'll attach. That's what reactive oxygen species do. Angry oxygen punches, it can damage membranes, it can damage any of the chemicals that are inside your body, and that creates a lot of heat and damage, which leads to inflammation. So you twist your ankle or your arm and it swells up. That's the mitochondria generating inflammation. Your mitochondria also make all of your body's heat. So when you get in the cold, your body has to make more heat to keep you alive. That heat production takes your fat, burns your fat faster, and makes your body more efficient at burning fat instead of burning carbohydrates, which then makes ketones. And then ketones have all these beneficial effects of, again, making your body more resilient. Hey there. Hey. Good to see you. DNA damage repair, if you've ever gotten a sunburn or carcinogens and other compounds that we know cause DNA damage, the mitochondria stimulate repairing those. Neuroplasticity, so growing new brain cells, learning new things, not forgetting as many things. Gene regulation, and like I said, those heat shock proteins, which go in and help repair stuff. This is super helpful when you've got a lot of heavy metals inside your body. If those proteins aren't working, those heat shock proteins can recognize, hey, there's something wrong, and can target that protein for degradation, so then your body has a chance to get that protein out and to build a new one that does function. So, like you said, mitochondria, I told you I had a big slide for it. All that ATP function, degradation, cell fate, signaling, and then all these genes can be turned on and off, which come from being cold, being hot, and red light. So with being cold, like I said, as your body temperature drops, it's your mitochondria that's responsible for generating temperature. You start getting hot flashes, you start getting fever, you've got cold hands, cold feet. That's all a signal of the mitochondria aren't able to generate enough heat, or they're not able to pull enough molecules in to break apart to make that heat. And that could be from an inefficiency. Sometimes you say, oh, you don't have enough iron, you may not have enough copper. Copper is necessary to pull iron into the cell. So if you know someone that's got cold hands, cold feet, anemic-like symptoms, they dizzy when they stand up, their hair's starting to change color, but they go in and get their blood work done, and it says, no, your hematocrit levels and your iron's within range. The mechanism that keeps iron in circulation in your body at the right concentration is different than the mechanism that actually brings the iron into your cell. So if you don't have enough copper, and you're not getting enough copper in your circulation, the cells can't bring the iron in, but you still have a constant circulation in your body, or within range circulation. So sometimes just consuming certain minerals can help balance everything back out. But when you go get a blood test, they don't test for copper. You've got to ask for that or pay extra for it. The same with LDL. You can take what's a low density lipoprotein. So the lipoprotein is lipids and proteins that make the encapsulation. Has nothing to do with what's on the inside. And there's different sizes of those low density lipoproteins. Only one of them is associated with heart disease. But when they test it, they don't look at the different sizes. You have to go in and ask, can I get different size differentiation so I know if I've got the one that's bad? It turns out if you have the other three that are good, we find those in people that are 90, 100, 110 years old still living active lifestyles. So these centenarians that are 103 years old and hopping up on a horse, they have incredibly high cholesterol and incredibly high LDL, but they don't have the smallest LDL size that's bad. So we're starting to realize that cholesterol and LDL are actually really good for longevity because they help repair things in your body, and as you get older, you have less cells, less energy to fix things as fast. So you kind of have to patch it up until you've got time to come back to it later. And the more that you can efficiently patch up well, then the longer you can stay healthy into late adulthood. So cholesterol is not necessarily bad. It's just, yeah. So yeah, fun fact of the day. With sauna, like I said, your skin is one of 5 primary detox pathways. So when you get into sauna and you start to get hot, to protect your internal organs, your body will send blood out to your peripheral tissues. All your veins dilate. If you think about heart disease and heart issues and you've got plaques, well, if you've ever had a tube that had something stuck on the inside, if you could take that tube and open it, close it and open, you would knock a lot of that loose. So if you're exercising and your veins dilate and they constrict, then great. But if you're not living a lifestyle where you're breathing real heavy and doing all that, then getting in a sauna, that's bad. Getting in a sauna, can actually increase or dilate your veins to start breaking any of that plaque or usually calcium buildup loose. And then it also strengthens your veins by causing them to actually move to exercise. Again, as I mentioned with my research with NASA, having that physical pressure is great. Having a massage, you're pushing on the cells, you're telling your cells, hey, respond, build a stronger network. By causing them to dilate, it's doing that same thing, and then you get in the cold and they constrict back up, then you get in the hot and they open back up, and then back and forth. You're causing them to physically move, which then strengthens the whole cytoskeleton network, and then all the things that the cell wants to be able to do, it has the roads and the ability to do those things. And then it also triggers the heat shock proteins, which help you go in and start repairing broken up proteins. Go.
So what would be the reason, like, sometimes I'll get in the sauna and I'll sweat, like, profusely, and then sometimes I'll get in and I won't sweat at all, like.
So part of that could be how hydrated you are, and then salt. Because if you've ever tasted your blood or your tears, we're very salty creatures. So we're realizing now that doctors saying go on a low salt diet was actually quite detrimental. If you've ever gone in to get like an IV, you're in an ambulance, you're like, oh no, they're like, what do we do? Well, okay, let's give them 9 grams of salt in a singular bag, and oh, hey, look, they're feeling better because they got hydrated. But don't eat salt, it's bad for you. Right? No, your body can't pull glucose into the cell unless it comes in with the sodium. Called the Gatorade effect. Sodium and glucose enter the cell together, and it pumps out a potassium. If you lose too much potassium through your sweat, then now your body can't bring more glucose in, and it can't regulate the salt. So then it doesn't want you to sweat, because if you keep sweating, you're going to lose more of the fluid, and it's going to offset that osmotic, that salt balance. And then if you don't have the right salts in your cells, they can't function, they can't bring new water in, so they'll slow down your rate of sweating. So if you get in the sauna and you're not sweating, especially a wet sauna, then, no, you're fine, we're just hanging out. Then you definitely need to start drinking more water. Because again, your body's sweating because that water, as it evaporates or drips off, is carrying heat to protect your internal organs from getting too hot. If your internal organs start to get too hot, you're going to start to cause damage. So sweating is a mechanism to keep your body safe by protecting the organs, and then at the same time giving it's like, oh, the trash man's coming 3 times this week, so I'm going to take all this stuff and I'm just going to start dumping it out, right? So then you can get out the proteins that aren't functioning properly, any sort of metabolic waste product, there's any kind of junk in your food, heavy metals. Your skin's a great way to get all that out. I will note later, there's definitely some foods that are beneficial to eat or supplements to take before going into the sauna, or even the cold plunge. Because when you get really cold, your body starts burning fat. When you get really hot, your body is also now increasing thermogenesis, it's burning through fat. Fat is where your metabolic waste products are stored. Your heavy metals, anything from your environment, whether it's something from a vaccine or an infection, your body says, oh, I don't know what to do with this right now, so I'm going to put it into the fat so it can't really do chemistry. It's inert, right? It's like if you take an avocado and you put some olive oil on it, it stays for longer. It's keeping oxygen from getting to it. It acts like a preservative. So that's the idea of putting it into fat. Well, then you start sweating or you get really cold and you're burning through that fat, you're opening the cell up and you're taking all this stuff out. Some of that's gonna make it to your skin and you're gonna sweat out. But then after you're done sweating, now it's just in circulation. Cilantro and parsley are cheap and great at binding heavy metals in your circulation and pulling them out. So if you like tacos or anything with cilantro on it, or parsley, that's something great to consume as soon as you leave, or you're gonna eat something before you come in. There's actually I think I have a supplement here. This brand is awesome. Everything's from food, but it's third-party tested the same way as a pharmaceutical, so it can be prescribed by a doctor. They've done epigenetic studies, they've done absorption studies, there's no heavy metals. I don't know how well you can see this, but there's humic acid, which helps move minerals efficiently. The liposomal part is involved in getting it through your digestive tract, so these nutrients make it through and get into your circulation. And then you have these, it says proprietary, but it literally says what it is, right? It's parsley, it's mullein. These target your different detox pathways, right? So your liver, your lungs, your colon, your kidneys, and your skin. So the idea is that you could take, 2 of these before going in, and then now any of those heavy metals or other waste products that are floating around after you get out of the sauna or cold plunge are now accessible. You can also just, like I said, take a picture of this. I have a box over here, and then a bigger picture if you want to take a picture of that that may be a little blurry. But you can also just eat those foods. So like garlic, dandelion, Salem husk, kelp. Kelp's awesome, but again, kelp grown in the ocean. The ocean has a tremendous amount of heavy metals, so it's kind of a trade-off. It's like, well, you should eat more seaweed so your thyroid is supported because it's got the iodine, and then you need the chromium and selenium to support the proteins that also work with iodine, but then it's from the ocean. So if it wasn't tested for heavy metals, then you need to eat something else to get rid of those. So I eat super healthy. It's like my go-to thing that I do. And I've been doing it literally since 7th grade. But sometimes it's just really convenient to take a supplement instead. So those are here. You don't need a prescription, but you could get a prescription. So if you said, hey, I'm already on a couple medications. I know that grapefruit and there's certain supplements that I shouldn't take with these prescriptions. You could take these to the doctor and say, hey, how does this work? And they can look it up side by side with all their prescriptions because they've done the same clinical trials and absorption studies, so they know cross-reactivity, and they can put it in the system and say, hey, are these gonna have a negative effect with the prescriptions I'm already taking? But you can just buy them online. You can buy them here. They're literally on the shelf. So this one's super helpful. And again, just eating a lot of cilantro and parsley before you leave works as well. There's a multivitamin that also has some plant compounds in it. Everything in it's from food. And you can see these are gene expression changes. So the idea is when you eat food, it's supposed to go into your cell and then have your cell do something. So in this study, they said, hey, it's turning on or off gene expression, and we know that that gene expression is tied to different things. One of my favorites is BDNF, which turns on new neuron growth. It helps build your nervous system. So if you want to move a little quicker, if you want to catch something without having to think about it, if you want to be able to remember something, if you want to learn something new, BDNF, it's not just your neurons in your brain. Your heart has neurons, your whole nervous system is connected. So anything you can do to stimulate BDNF. Fish is great for BDNF. Another big one, I'm sure most of you may have heard of this by now, GLP-1, right? Bitter foods turn on GLP-1. So if you eat a little bit of arugula, dark chocolate, or olive oil with a meal, it's gonna turn on your own GLP-1. So then you're getting all the benefits with the food instead of some compound that's lingering for longer. So that way you get the perk without the bad side effects. And then like I said, this has bitter melon and a few other compounds in there that are those bitter foods that turn on the GLP-1. Yes and no. So there are some antioxidants in coffee and then some polyphenols that can support GLP-1. The thing with coffee is coffee doesn't actually give you energy. coffee binds to proteins that turn off the pathway that tells you that you're tired, and then willpower kind of pushes you through the rest of the way. By turning off the pathway that says you're tired, it makes you feel like you've got energy. And anytime that something's increasing energy or increasing ATP, the more ATP you have, it binds to stuff to turn off pathways saying that like you're hungry. So when you're eating a meal and you eat enough, your body's now turning that into energy, and then the axis of energy turns off the pathway that says keep eating more. GLP-1 is involved in that. The reason it works with bitter foods is because most bitter foods, like if you were just randomly eating foods on bushes out in the middle of nowhere, they could be poisonous. So if you eat something poisonous, your body's gonna say, hey, you're kind of full, eat less of that. Let's have it spend more time in our stomach with our digestive enzymes and our acid to break it down, so then we don't eat too much poison, or we can prevent it from being deleterious. But we know arugula doesn't have, it's not gonna kill us, and we know olive oil is great. I drink that stuff. I put it on every single day. If you don't consume olive oil, you should definitely consume olive oil. Dark glass bottle. I avoid cooking with it because anytime you cook oils, it can turn them into trans fat. Yes, and they went through all the work of doing. I don't cook with oils. I only cook with saturated fats. I've got a whole YouTube video on this. I use like little stick figures to break through. So a saturated fat doesn't have any double bonds, so it kind of stacks on top of itself like.
Do they sell that at Whole Foods?
Coconut oil, butter, ghee, tallow.
Okay.
Yeah. So you just cook. Cook with butter, right? Cook with coconut oil, or tallow. Yeah. So cook with that, because when the bond breaks, it just separates, and then afterwards it just comes back in. Oils, so a saturated fat, you think of like Velcro. If you've got this much surface area, it's going to take a certain amount of energy or heat to break that bond. So that's why butter will get soft at room temperature, but it doesn't turn into a liquid. Liquids, like oils, they have double bonds in them. So now there's less surface area, so less heat or less energy is required to make the oil a fluid at room temperature instead of a solid, because now it's bent. So the hiccup there is that double bond, when you put it into a cell membrane, it allows the cell membrane to have a little more flexibility, more oil-like characteristics, which is necessary because you want your cell, like a white blood cell, to walk up and grab a bacteria and to be able to swallow it, pull it out of your system. Your cells need to have a little bit of flexibility, right? Your veins need to be able to dilate and shrink back in. So if it was all saturated fat, it'd be stiff, and you'd have to warm yourself up before you could do anything, kind of like cold-blooded animals. They just need heat to get things going. If you have too much fluid, then your cells can't hold their shape, and they don't have enough rigidity to make stuff happen. So the hiccup is that when you heat that double bond, it could break and turn the opposite direction. That's what a trans fat is. It's instead of bending this way, it bends this way. Nothing in nature, no biological thing that you eat is going to make trans fat. It's only made by taking an oil and heating it so it flips the other way. Our body doesn't break down these trans fats. You can kind of get rid of them. You can do liposuction, but the trans fats build up over time. So think kids eating all these chips and little things, the fried foods, just a little bit, but you eat for replacement parts. You're building the cells of your adult body, and next thing you know, you've got all these omega-6, which, sure, it creates a lot of membrane fluidity, but you get too hot, it bends over. Reactive oxygen species, the angry oxygen from mitochondria shows up and hits it, and now instead of having an omega-3, which is like this, the omega-6 is like this. It's longer, so now it can do more damage than this can. So that's why all this seed oil debates going on. They're like, well, but omega-6 is good for your heart. I'm like, yeah, sure. It adds more fluidity so your heart can pump, especially when it's filling up with stuff that's not supposed to be there, calcium, plaques. So it's got the fluidity. It's a Band-Aid for the issue. Too much omega-6 is more reactive to stress. So then when you actually get stressed, you're now causing all this physical damage to the membrane, to other things in the cell, and then your inflammatory system has to kick on, and then your immune system has to come in. You've got all this stuff to fix on top of the thing that caused the stress in the first place, right? you're a kid, something happened at work, you got a flat tire, you tripped and fell, like you already have something going on. Now your body's got all this other stuff to do because you built your house out of pallets instead of good quality wood from the store. So yeah, drink olive oil. That was my whole tangent there.
Can I just throw in there?
Yeah.
And that's
Oh,
one of the reasons why
yeah.
we started carrying this omega-3 supplement.
Yeah.
Is because systemic inflammation is one way you can really support your body is with a good quality omega-3 supplement. So that's what that is, omega balance with.
What brought me out here was I'm working with a veteran reintegration center that they're building in Georgetown. But before that, I started a company called Helix Prime Nutrition where I do kind of like this health coaching. I feel like I really need a better name for it, but in essence, I'm using all of my biochemistry skills to look at blood work, microbiome, cell activity, food, exercise, and say, okay, where's the thing causing the symptom? And then how can we make little micro adjustments to support that? Or if you have prescriptions usually turn on or turn off some biochemical pathway, but all the pathways are connected. So if you're taking ADD or ADHD medicine, you've got this pathway that's like on all the time. So it's siphoning resources from another pathway, which leads to things like dry mouth or trouble sleeping or an upset stomach. So you can increase your amount of certain foods or amino acids or things in these other pathways, and then the symptoms start to go away because you're now giving the cell what it needs. It created the symptom because it's telling you like, hey, I don't like this thing you're doing. Can we do something about it? And you're like, nah, that's fine. I'll just drink more water. And then eventually it's like, okay, it wasn't listening. I got to do something. I got to jump around. I got to make a big scene, right? So most pharmaceutical drugs are just treating the symptom. Most of them are actually derived from snake venom, which just literally turns off different biochemical pathways. Yeah, Pfizer has more patents on snake venom derivatives than it's terrifying. But it works because we know that when a snake bites you, it's paralysis. It's turning off all these different biochemical pathways. So then it can wrap you up. It can go through its whole process, and you're not going to fight back. You're not going to bite it. You're not going to do whatever. So you tweak it a little, put in a pill, and all of a sudden it turns some symptom off. But it didn't fix the reason it's doing the thing. So what I like to do is say, okay, what foods, what activities can we do to help the cell, to fix it? So last week, I had someone do a blood panel, and I had them pay a little extra to get the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. It was like an 80-to-1. Like, it was so far off. And I was like, okay, man, like, you need to start drinking olive oil. Now, it's not a quick fix, right? Your skin cells, every 2 weeks you get, new skin cells. That's what all the dust in your home is mostly skin. I know, it's exciting. Your stomach every couple of days, mouth every couple of days. Other organs and tissues can take longer, they can take weeks. So you can't just, bathe in olive oil and hop out like they do in the movies and they're like, I'm young again. But if you incorporate it in, pretty much any time I eat bread, which I love sourdough, bread will spike insulin. Insulin's there to pull sugar out of your circulation because sugar will attach to stuff and it won't let go. Does anybody know what the A1C measurement is actually measuring when you get your blood work done? Your blood has a 3-month lifespan. The sugar will attach to a blood cell and it stays with it for that whole 3 months. And then it dies off, and then so your body's making new red blood cells, and then some of them are being recycled. But every time you eat sugar, some of that sugar will open up, attach to a red blood cell, and then it stays with it. So it's giving you an average of how much of your blood has a sugar or multiple sugars attached to it. If there's sugars everywhere, it can't grab nutrients, it can't grab oxygen, it may be affecting its shape, and so you're not making your body operate very efficiently. And it's not just blood, it's your whole circulatory system. All your veins, your capillaries, your lymphatic system, the sugar can bind to it. So insulin's kind of the saving grace because as soon as sugar shows up, you taste something sweet, insulin's like, hey, bring sugar into the cell. We've got to get it out of the circulatory system. So it puts a pause on other processes such as breaking down fat and protein. So how do we get over this? For free. Eat your vegetables and your protein first. Eat your carbohydrates last. Eat the potato last. Put the rice or the noodles at the bottom of your bowl. Try to eat the proteins or the vegetables first, right? If the vegetables are done a little early, eat those and then eat the rest of your meal. When I think of appetizer, I think fiber or protein. Give me fiber or protein, so that's preparing my body to digest food. And now I've got everything on to get nutrients out of the food. And then you can eat your carbohydrates. And if it's covered in oil, it slows that glucose absorption, it slows that glucose spike. But we all love carbohydrates, so we all have that. And that's another reason why all these modalities are so awesome, because the cold plunge is telling your body, hey, this area, it's covered in sugar. Things aren't working like they're supposed to. Let's increase autophagy. Let's start breaking these down a little early and get them out of here so we can get some new cells in that aren't coated in sugar. The same with the sauna. And then the way red light works is the wavelength stimulates the mitochondria to have more kinetic energy, kind of like if you're rubbing your hands together. So now the energy that the mitochondria were putting towards heat generation, because the infrared light's already warming your body, it can take that output and it can direct it towards something else. So it's like, instead of hiring a new employee, you just bought something that made it easier to do the jobs that they were already doing, right? You're making your body more efficient by being in that red light. The sun generates red light. Incandescent light bulbs generate red light. The sun is amazing. The problem is that the sun also makes ultraviolet light, which can be dangerous. So that's why having the red light here, it's creating that heat, it's giving you the red light, it's supporting all those mitochondrial functions so you can get more done in a shorter time frame, and then it's not adding in that UV so you can hang out for 20 minutes. You don't have to cover your eyes, even though it says cover your eyes. I've seen a lot of literature of like, if you don't cover your eyes, good stuff happens, but most of the manufacturers are like, still cover your eyes, just in case. So she didn't say don't cover your eyes.
I never cover my eyes.
But I'm saying I don't cover my eyes.
Provide them if you guys want to.
Yeah, okay. But fun fact about UV, a lot of kids started to get nearsighted around the times that screens were coming out. And we thought, the kids are on the screen all the time. And that's why they're looking at something this far away. It turns out that your eye is mostly the size it's going to be when you're born, but it does grow and it grows back into the brain a little bit. So there's proteins that respond to UV light that enters the eye that tell the eye when to stop growing. So if the eye grows too far, then as the light comes in, it crosses, it doesn't hit the right focal point, and it starts to blur, and then that's why you start needing glasses, or you get, it's either nearsighted or farsighted. So they're finding that instead of just telling your kids to get rid of all screens, just tell them to go outside. As long as they're outside and there's some UV light that's getting in, it's still stimulating those same processes to prevent the eye from growing too far back in the brain. Again, too much UV light's bad, but your body, however long humans have been on the planet, we've been eating whole foods, which back to your question, what supports mitochondria? Food that has mitochondria in it, replacement parts. This is why eating liver can be so beneficial, because again, you're taking the liver and you're breaking it back down into its constituents, and that doesn't mean necessarily it's going to just turn back into liver. It's like taking collagen protein. That doesn't mean it's going to just become collagen back inside your body. But if you give yourself enough raw material of a particular type that has the vitamins and the minerals and the fats and all the stuff that really mimic an organ, your liver's like, oh, hey, I could use every single one of those and I can just start making new stuff now. So eating foods that are complementive, right? So organs, obviously we don't look like plants. There's no part of us that's broccoli, at least that I've ever seen. So plants, I see a lot more stimulating instruction. So we know that broccoli contains a compound called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane turns on gene expression of a few different pathways that help your body turn on the detox pathways and prevent carcinogens from forming. Well, if you have a steak and you sear it, searing protein is going to create carcinogens. So if you have steak and broccoli, the broccoli is now turning on genes that tell your body to take those carcinogens and not let them actually make it to the DNA and cause the damage in the first place. So they balance themselves out. So when you look at culturally rich foods, Italians, tomatoes and olive oil. Heating the tomatoes pulls out all that lycopene, and then the olive oil helps it absorb. Most of hold on. So yeah, culturally rich foods are super healthy, good go-tos, and usually they have single ingredients. But thinking about things to consume before you come in here, especially if you're going to do the red light, plants produce colorful things in response to light to fight off the UV, to be able to respond to it, and that's why it's got that color. So eating foods that are rich in polyphenols, right? All of your colorful bell peppers and eggplants and blueberries and all those, before you come in and do red light, those compounds are making it inside of your body and then responding to the light frequency. So then you're giving them more energy to actually increase absorption, to make it into the spots that they need to be to have more of those beneficial effects. So we know that blueberries are awesome, but blueberries with a little bit of red light, all of a sudden, they're more awesome. So,
Can we take blueberries from the chamber?
oh yeah. I mean, it does take about 30 minutes to get into your circulatory system. During my undergrad, I actually did some research where I took spinach and took the chlorophyll molecule out and then added it into different cells or the mitochondria and then put light on it and then looked at how it changed respiration and then antioxidants. And it was awesome. I found that if you're going to get really stressed, eating spinach and getting that chlorophyll into the cell increases ATP production and is an antioxidant. But you can't really patent spinach. So no one wanted to give me money to further my research because they're like, you're just going to eat spinach and then go on a run? I'm like, yeah, I guess that's the takeaway, but I can describe all these details of how to do that. And they're like, oh yeah, so just eat a salad, got it. But I share that to really hone in this idea of every single thing you eat has an effect on your body. I was in Oklahoma for 20 years, and they just passed a bill that's food is medicine. So doctors can now prescribe food, and then you can go to the farmer's market, and you can say, hey, here's my food stamps or my prescription. I'm going to buy $20 worth of produce. Here's the prescription. And they'll say, oh, here's an extra 20 bucks, so you can double the amount that you're buying. Because people are realizing that celery is an awesome type of salt. It really helps you hydrate your body. You can buy packets of salt, yeah, that's cool, but if you just eat some celery or juice it up, you're getting all these other things in addition to those salts. Carrots, I just bought some carrots today because I'm going to make a little video about it, but when you chew a carrot, it's going to build up all of your jaw muscles, and you're getting all that vitamin A and the fiber, which is going to turn on your own GLP-1. So for me, it's one of the best things you can do on like road trips because you're just sitting there. You don't actually need carbohydrates. You're just going to turn it all into fat. But you eat a carrot and you chew that thing like grandma told you to, man, it's going to take you, you can walk by, it's fine. Yeah, just hang it.
Sorry.
It's going to take you 20 minutes to chew that. You're not going to want another carrot and your jaw's going to be tired. And then you take a little swig of olive oil afterwards, and now all that vitamin A and other plant compounds that need fat to get in are now going to interact with the olive oil, and they'll get into your body. And once they're in your body, then you need some sunshine or some red light, and it's going to help all that interact better. So the big takeaway is consuming any sort of plants that have lots of color before doing red light, super beneficial. Consuming, yeah. Yeah, methylene blue. So this is, I use methylene blue in the lab to stain biological proteins. And you can use comasi and methylene blue to stain proteins, and then ethidium bromide to stain DNA. Because they're kind of transparent unless you stain them otherwise. So it's that same idea where if you take something like methylene blue or the anthocyanins from blueberries and they bind to a protein, that compound can now respond to the red light more efficiently than the protein would on its own. So it acts like an antenna. And instead of taking 5 minutes to get the protein moving and having enough energy to do stuff, it takes 1 because it's interacting with that red light, so it stimulates those proteins to work faster. The problem is that the body doesn't really have efficient ways of getting rid of the methylene blue. So people that consume it over a long time frame and then have an autopsy have these like blue brains, right? It kind of binds and it just stays around for longer. So I think of methylene blue as one of those, okay, here's how long your lifespan is, and if you take it at times that you really need it to give you that edge, okay, great, but it's gonna kind of stay with you, and at some point you're gonna hit a plateau where most of your protein, there's already so much blue that you're stimulating them with the red light, they're kind of shifting over to adapt to it, but you're kind of hitting a plateau. And that's because your body has a harder time getting rid of it. So that's why I go to more of like blueberries and compounds that our body knows how to use and then get rid of, so that way you're not kind of stuck with it, so it doesn't have that lingering effect to it. Things like creatine. We used to think creatine was just for the bodybuilders, right? What creatine does is it grabs a phosphate, and then as soon as ATP breaks off a phosphate and needs another one, instead of having to go through our entire metabolism, all these different steps to add that phosphate back on, creatine can just say, oh, here you go, and then add the phosphate back on in one step. So now you've regenerated your ATP faster. If you're lifting weights, you lift weights, you burn a bunch of your ATP, breaks that phosphate off, you've got to wait for your metabolism to add it back on so you can go do your next set. Or if you have creatine in your system, it's now grabbed those phosphates and can add it back on quicker, so now you have more power output. But ATP is not just for muscles. If you're in a car wreck, if you have concussion, if you have a poor night's sleep, immune activity is going up, you're trying to recover from exercise, anything that would deplete your ATP, by adding creatine in, it can help regenerate the ATP, so now your cell has more energy. Your workers had a little bit of coffee, they can get back to work. Because we all know that after a poor night's sleep, it's like, I'm still functioning, but I probably shouldn't do anything too important today because I'm tired, I'm fatigued. You're just not 100%. So the creatine can help regenerate more of that cellular ATP, and that's something you can do throughout your whole life. Your body already makes about 0.5 gram to 1 gram of creatine anyways. It's really prevalent in red meat, especially meat that moves. So you're talking like deer, you're talking the shoulder, the dark meat where it moves a little bit more, that typically has more creatine in it because it's using it. That's why the biology is producing it in the first place. But because the bodybuilders used creatine and paid exorbitant prices for it early on, the standard way of producing creatine is now one of the safest, best ways. So someone would have to kind of go out of their way to make a subpar creatine. So it's easier to get good quality creatine just about anywhere. There's some brands that chop it up a little smaller. I know some people where it kind of upsets their stomach a little bit, just switch to a different brand. I've got a couple that I use. My wife's one of those people where it just kind of bothers her stomach. But some brands bother it more than others, and you just kind of reduce the dosage. But that's something you can consume your whole life, and you don't have to worry about it like the methylene blue does.
Do you take it every day?
I do, yeah. So I take it every day. Your body, again, unlike methylene blue, your body can get rid of creatine, and you just pee it out. So as you increase your creatine, you also need to increase your fluid intake. But now if your fluid intake increases and you're peeing more salt is leaving the cells to get into the water to create a balance. So now you're losing your salts. So if you start taking creatine, especially on a regular basis, you also need to ensure that you're getting enough electrolytes and water to balance out that hardship on your kidneys. But other than that, it's pretty safe.
Does it affect like menopause? I was reading something that the creatine could cause some type of effect when you're going through menopause, like an imbalance of.
So again, what creatine's doing is it's giving your body access to more energy. So, and this is also part of the reason I like to take it every day, so my body can like get used to having it around. Because anytime you start something new, I think most of us here are old enough, like old stereos used to have the equalizers on it, right? As time changes and you get older or you start eating different foods and your habits, they kind of adjust those equalizers. So as soon as you do something new, I go back to the gym, all of a sudden you're like, oh man, that was a lot, because here's your equalizers and you try to make a different noise and it needs time to adjust. So for guys, it's like most things, unfortunately for you, a little easier. For women, you've got all these different cycles and things happening. So if you start taking creatine at any phase, then now that phase, you've given it more energy, you've put a little gas on. So it's gonna go up a little bit more, so then it may like kind of overshoot, and you've got to start breaking it down faster to bring the next thing in. So if you don't take creatine, I would start just a gram or so, take that for 30 days or for a full cycle, and then you can start increasing it up from there, and that'll mitigate any potential symptoms. Most people I know, no big deal. Your body, it's in there for about a day. You don't absorb all of it, so there's some variation there. But for the most part, it's safe. You're just giving yourself more gas. Yeah. That's what I'm saying is your body excretes it through the urine, so then you need more fluid to make sure that you're actually getting it out. So as long as you have enough water, then it's not going to sit around in your kidneys. And the same goes for protein. If you start eating more protein, put it this way, protein's made out of amino acids. Every amino acid has a nitrogen and then 2 carbons, and then sometimes have other nitrogen. Fats and sugars don't have nitrogen. So that's why you can convert proteins into fats and sugars, but you can't convert everything back into those essential amino acids because you need that nitrogen and you just don't have it. And this is why a lot of people can do just straight carnivore diet, because you've got all the atoms you need to make everything else, but you can't always make all the other stuff. But your body gets rid of that excess nitrogen through urea. That's what urea is. It's got 3 nitrogen and a carbon on it, which means you're going to pee more. So as you increase your protein, you also need to increase your water and your salt, so that way you're flushing out that extra nitrogen, because urea is a really strong base. It'll start to denature your proteins. I use it to break open cell membranes. So if you start exercising, eating more protein, just water and electrolytes, season your meat with salt, more water.
That was my question is, because I recently read a book and it actually talked about how we've kind of come on this wave of electrolyte, like the fad of electrolytes, and how like people have actually gotten harmed by too much electrolyte, whereas like less people get harmed by being dehydrated. Like they were talking about long-term like races and stuff.
Yeah.
That people actually will get super sick and end up in the hospital because they overconsume
Too much.
electrolytes
Yeah.
during their race.
Mhm.
Whereas just because everybody said you shouldn't run dehydrated, but it turns out that actually that might be better. Anyway, so I'm just curious, like, what are more natural ways to up electrolytes if you're not sure about overdosing on them?
So every time you eat something, there's a tremendous number of processes that start. I mean, as soon as you smell and you taste something, you start making all these digestive enzymes. You start communicating to your body all this stuff is happening. This is why artificial sweeteners are so bad, because you're like, hey, sugar's on the way. So then all your body gets ready, and then sugar never shows up. And your body's like, oh, never cry wolf, huh? Okay, well, I'm gonna quit listening to you. And then all of a sudden sugar does show up, and it's like, oh shit, I'm not ready, uh-oh, right? And then now you're having too much sugar and these insulin, issues. So artificial sweeteners in themselves are bad. But all these processes take off, and your body then primes itself to extract nutrients. And this makes sense. Where did we get most of our nutrients from? Every time we ate food. Supplements haven't been around that long. You just ate whole food, and then your body extracted everything out of it, and that's where you got your vitamins and your minerals. There used to be minerals in the dirt, so you got it from your food. So that's when your body's used to getting that stuff. We seldom drink salt water. Usually you're not supposed to go to the ocean and drink water. right? So the idea that I use and the literature supports is if you just salt your food, then you're getting small micro doses. You're getting those electrolytes, you're getting those minerals with the food to help transport, regulate everything versus just pounding back salt water. What I do is there's 2 salts. One of them has more potassium because most of our food, I'm not going to stop going out to eat, buying things that sometimes just have more sodium in it. Too much sodium can be bad if you don't have enough magnesium and phosphorus and potassium and all those other salts. And sodium we know is really high in most foods. So I have a salt it's blue, it's actually really pretty, and it's just it has more potassium in it. So I mix that 50-50 with another salt called Baja Gold, and it just has more of the trace minerals in it. So it has a little bit of lithium, which is needed for brain function. You don't need very much, but if you don't have it, it can increase your odds of getting dementia and Alzheimer's. It's got chromium and selenium and iodine and all these small amounts. You don't need a lot, but it's got a little bit. We know too much of those things can cause damage, so you just need a little bit. And so I mix those 2 together, and then I just salt all of my food. Anytime that I'm cooking something, I just add a little salt onto it. And you need salt to get sugar in. So if you have salt with any sort of carbohydrate, as your body breaks it down into sugar, you now have salt right there to bring it in, and you've got the magnesium and the potassium and all these other things to help balance and regulate to make all your proteins work. So if you're doing a strenuous exercise, if you're doing a lot of sauna every single day or you're sweating a lot, then you may need to increase the amount of salt that you're bringing in. But if you're not doing sauna every single day, if you're not sweating profusely like the guys that are out here mowing every single day, then you can just salt your food with each meal, and that'll be sufficient, 100%. Yeah.
But it's not just any salt, it's specific salts.
Yeah, so again, your body, there's about 300 reactions that require magnesium. So a protein has a magnesium in it, and that's what allows it to function. That's what minerals do. They bind inside of a protein and allow it to function. Vitamins will bind to the outside of a protein and speed up or slow down its functioning, or allow it to donate like methyl groups to then do chemical reactions. So that's why drinking energy drinks, people are like, I feel great. All those B vitamins just turned every single protein on to go faster. Push that equalizer button up, and all of a sudden you feel the bass. You're like, oh yeah. And then what happens? All those proteins get tired. They hit this spot where like everything's going, and the body says, okay, we need to stop. And it starts generating all these proteins that break down all those other proteins, and then you crash because now you've put the brake on to slow down. There's actually another supplement over here that.
Yeah, we're at about an hour.
Okay.
So, but 2 things I would love before you end is to go over those supplements so
Okay.
that everybody knows that we have them here and kind of how you would use them in the lab. That would be helpful.
Okay.
I guess that was all for me.
Okay, cool. This one was, again, this whole product line, it's all food, but tested the same clinical trials, all that jazz. So the idea is it's supposed to be mimicking the way that you would normally eat food, but it doesn't have all the bad stuff that most of the dietary supplement market has. Another fun fact about supplements is it tells you how much is in it, so you can do the math. You can just say, oh, okay, if I add 2 grams, 3 milligrams, 3.5, 30, and then you weigh the pill or the packet, the difference is how much filler is in it. And we've all got AI on your phone. Just take a picture and say, add all these up, how much is the other ingredients? And it'll just tell you. You don't have to use a calculator anymore, right? It just, boom, it's there. The amount of supplements at Whole Foods and natural grocers and off Amazon and Walmart that are 4, 5, 6,000% filler, or fillers that prevent the absorption of the thing you're buying, it's insane. It's like the standard. And a lot of that cellulose is corn or sawdust or some part of a plant that nothing's going to eat. Nothing can use it. It's a waste product. And they sell it to, or they give it to the supplement people, and then they use it as filler. So now your supplement's only $10 for a 30-day supply because it's grass, right? they got paid for taking a waste material off of somebody else and diluting it and giving it to the masses and not testing heavy metals and other contaminants. And then you think you're doing good and you go to the store and you buy a supplement, but there's no restriction or there's no regulation on dietary supplements, so they just get away with it. So that's why if you can get it from food, that's the best way to do it. If you have a garden, if you can go to the farmer's market and get as close to recently grown in the soil as possible, that's the best way to do it. For the foods that you don't have access to or you're trying to mitigate some symptom, to me that's where supplements come in. This was intended to replace energy drinks. It still has 200 milligrams of caffeine in a singular packet. I would not advise anyone to drink this before going and doing any of those things. You don't want to drink caffeine and then shock your body because that can cause too much stress. Caffeine, we know, is a diuretic, so it speeds up the process of water coming out, so you can actually put too much gas on and lose too much sweat and water too fast. So, yeah, I know a lot of people that use it as a pre-workout. Caffeine does constrict your blood vessels a little bit, so if you're going on a stair stepper for an hour, like, you'll be okay. If you're doing something super aerobic or lifting really heavy, usually I would do less because the caffeine again can constrict. But other endurance type activities or in replace of coffee or an energy drink, I actually like to add a little bit to my coffee just because I like the flavor. The other cool thing about this is it has yerba sante, which helps adrenal support. So typically if you consume too much caffeine, you get kind of jittery. That triggers an inflammatory immune response to then calm you down, which drives the crash. The yerba sante in here prevents you from getting to that point of shake, so then it's more of a steady energy that you feel, and then you kind of come down. All the green teas also, or all the caffeine's from green tea, so your body kind of has to like break it down to absorb it versus just like concentrated. And then it also has Rwanda. Rwanda you can also get in red teas, but this is well known to support visceral fat loss. So right around the midsection. Visceral fat has 2 to 3 times more receptors for cortisol. So if you're stressed during an exercise or any sort of activity, you're not going to burn visceral fat. So you can't out-exercise visceral fat. You have to lower your stress and then need to burn those calories for your body to get rid of visceral fat. That's why it's so hard to like get rid of this area. But compounds like Rwanda, which is in here or in some teas, target that and prevent that communication with cortisol, so then you can burn it like you would any other type of fat. So I really like this one. It also has ginseng, which gives you energy, versus caffeine, which just turns off you feeling tired. And then yeah, there's 30 packs in here. Again, because it's a powder, so you can kind of dose it, so you don't necessarily need to take all 200 milligrams of caffeine, but it's here. There's been a few times where I'm like, yeah, this would be really nice to take like after I leave here, just to go about my day to do whatever. I actually brought a couple of these ones. Dun, 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 dun. That's for you. Yeah, you've had one of these. A little parting gift.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
This is called Eternal.
Oh, that's
They, yeah, marketing people. So I can pass this box around. So this has resveratrol, which is grapes, claim to fame, but there's no alcohol in it, so you don't get that bad side. It also has collagen, pomegranate, mangosteen, acai, and a couple other superfood like blends, lots of vitamin C. My favorite thing about this is it has glutathione. Glutathione is 3 amino acids, and pretty much anytime you consume glutathione, it's going to break down in your digestive tract. By adding this glutathione in with all of these polyphenols and other compounds in here, they have a 95% absorption, meaning 95% of that glutathione makes it through your digestive system and into your circulatory system. Glutathione is your body's master antioxidant. So in my mind, taking this right before going in to do any modality that's going to cause a little bit of stress is now giving your body that glutathione to clean up afterwards for the repair. I also think it tastes pretty good, so there's that. You can keep this in the fridge or leave it out. It's pretty shelf stable. But yeah, it's marketed as a antioxidant, like age-defying defense. But when you dive into the actual nutrients, to me, it just screams mitochondria. Like it literally has coenzyme Q10 in here, which is a compound in the mitochondria. I don't think I added this one onto the chart. No, but
A regular dose of collagen, like you don't have to take like your collagen supplement when you take this, or
so yeah, so this only has about a gram of collagen in it. So you can still take your normal collagen. I would suggest adding your collagen into another protein powder, and instead of taking just collagen by itself, because collagen is just 3 of the 20 amino acids, and it just repeats and forms this long polymer. So your body breaks it down, but then it's just giving you those 3 amino acids. So if you add those 3 amino acids in with everything else, then you get, you can use more of those amino acids for collagen versus converting them into other stuff that your body may need. And then there's another brand that has your collagen.
Yeah, we have that as well.
Yeah, so there's another collagen supplement over there. And the thing with collagen is if you can take collagen with some kind of like olive oil and vitamin C, and ultimately hyaluronic acid, which is harder to get because that usually comes from like animal product. But for your body to make collagen inside of the cell, it needs vitamin C, biotin and B vitamin, hyaluronic acid, and other compounds to put it together in addition to the amino acids. So this brand has a collagen supplement, but then there's another one over here that she's got in stock.
Remember if we have the hyaluronic acid.
Yeah, yeah.
What you were just
So I remember
talking
looking. Yeah,
about.
so this one has the hyaluronic acid,
Yeah.
the glycine, the arginine, the biotin. So the idea is, again, when you eat something, it breaks it down into the raw materials. But if you can give yourself enough of the raw materials for rebuilding it in the cell, you increase your likelihood of turning it back into the replacement part. Yeah, so I really like these. Here's that. Oh yeah, I guess you guys can just come look at it. Just stand up, move your calves a little. Here was the smaller Vitalite. These are, hasn't been opened yet. No, this is called Purify. I guess you kind of see it. These are like small little like green pills, which makes sense with the stuff that is in here. It's mostly green. And these, again, I would suggest taking, especially if you're going to do the sauna or the cold plunge, because you're turning on fat oxidation, and fat's where you store most of your heavy metals and waste products. So having something that can go in and chelate to pull those out.
About 30 to 40 minutes before.
Yeah, I mean, you could literally, as you get here, because when you're in the sauna, like you're going to be sweating.
Vitalite.
This is the Purify.
That's the purifier.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
just noting it so our staff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, if you were to take, like, as soon as you got here, these two, the Purify and then the Eternal, this is going to help clean up the rest of the heavy metals and toxicity that you released by being in the cold or the hot, and this is going to help with rebuilding everything, the autophagy and all the other.
is there a more beneficial way to start? Because I've been told before that it's better to start the sauna first, and then I've been told that it's better to start the cold plunge.
There's benefits to both.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely value to both. And for simplicity, I would just try to do both to get a feel for like how you feel afterwards, because ultimately you know how you feel better than any scientist. And it's going to vary because people are different based, how you're feeling. But there's definitely boths to doing one versus the other, going back and forth, or just doing one. Really, humans haven't had air conditioning and all the luxury of Uber Eats and Walmart, but for a small amount of time that we've been on this planet, right? So if you live near the equator and you've got lots of fruits and other stuff that just kind of grows all the time, then cool, you've always got a food source. But otherwise, we go through periods of feed fast. Fasting's a whole other area that I didn't even get into, which, seeing that the whole crowd is female, Dr. Mindy Pelz has an amazing book called Fasting Like a Girl. Fast Like a Girl. And Eat Like a Girl. And it's all about what to eat at different parts of your cycle. And there's people that they're like, oh, I've gone through menopause, and they start changing how they eat and doing different things, and even just increasing the amount of testosterone, which can come from certain minerals like boron and zinc and chromium, can like turn testosterone production back on, and all of a sudden you just de-age by a couple years. There was the last event that we were at, I was talking to somebody, and the guy was like, yeah, my wife, like, her libido shot back from 10 years ago. She was like hot flashes and night sweats, and she was like going through it. And we changed a couple of things and got these minerals in, and she's, her libido's back, and all that's done. She just like went back 10 years. And again, it's not that you can really stop that whole process, but if you're giving your cells what they need, they can function properly. If they can't function properly, they're gonna quit trying and just lean into the next step.
I think I read both of them, and I think Eat Like a Girl is better.
Oh,
so
cool.
The Eat Like a Girl goes, both of them cover things, but her Fast Like a Girl goes really heavy into the science of the fast side. Eat Like a Girl still covers the fasting side, but it also adds on like the nutritional side. And
That's the best of both worlds.
it's a little more, I felt like it was better written. It was like, she just did it.
Easier to
It was her
digest?
second- It was. It was easier to digest.
PhD
It was
person
like
would
her
like
second
the
version.
fat.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she wrote it better.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would get Eat Like a Girl. Yeah,
Um,
really well done.
Here, this is the multivitamin that I take now, that my family takes. I've got 2 teenage daughters. It's called Vitalite. It's got these little packs. It's got all your stuff in it. So this has, what's that?
Antioxidant in it and like
Yeah. So it's got superfoods, probiotics, omega 3, 6, 7, and 9. 7's actually great at healing the mucosal lining or gut barrier. It's got digestive enzymes, amino acids, phytonutrients, vitamins and minerals, your EPA, DHA, DPA. Fun fact, most of your DHA and EPA, the healthy essential fatty acids that you have to get from your diet, a huge proportion of them are actually stored in the glutes. So the idea of I like big butts, there's some validity to it, because if you've got a bigger butt, you have more likely have a higher proportion of DHA and EPA. So then when you're growing a baby, you have more of that material you can give to them in their brain, and potentially they'd be better off because they've got more of that material. Yeah. Got the dump truck. The other thing is that on days that you like do legs, lots of leg stuff, eat sardines, eat more olive oil, eat those heavy EPA, DHA foods, because again, it's going to help build the material of your glutes because it stores a lot of it there. So yeah, eat sardines on leg day.
I apologize, I was late.
Oh, no, it's
So
fine.
covered- Is it best to do the cold plunge or the sauna at the beginning of the day? Does it matter if you do it at the end of the day? Is it just?
There's definitely some variation. So I just watched an episode that Dr. Andrew Huberman put together looking at cortisol. And he was, cortisol is what helps wake you up first thing in the morning. And he was demonstrating that if you can really spike it as high as possible in the morning, you can get sunshine, you can get barefoot in the dirt, you can have a little bit of coffee if you drink coffee regularly. It has a little bit of an effect. Hydrating can spike it. Licorice you mentioned that a little bit. But the idea is the more you can get your cortisol up first thing in the morning, cold plunge, sauna, exercise, that stress, first thing then makes cortisol drop more quickly throughout the day. So then come nighttime, as cortisol is down, melatonin can kick on. So it's got a few more hours to build up. So then come nighttime, you're actually sleepy. Anytime cortisol comes on, it turns off melatonin production, and melatonin breaks down pretty quick. When you're sleeping, you've got tryptophan becomes serotonin, and then melatonin, and then DMT, which you produce while you're dreaming. You literally hallucinate, if you will. And that process, it's pretty quick. So we know that melatonin can dip quickly. So blue light at night, stuff like that, that's inhibiting or driving your cortisol, makes it to where you're not sleeping as well. And then the longer it takes that melatonin to go through its whole process is going to push back your cortisol spike in the morning. So for cortisol, first thing in the morning is the best time to do it. The same if you've got like the shaker plate, because again, I did mention that like your lymphatic system requires physical movement, where your vascular system has a heart to pump. So first thing in the morning, doing just moving your body in all the weird ways just to wake yourself up, maybe laugh at yourself. Helps that lymphatic system push through, and then like again, spike that cortisol. You can also do it end of the day, right? It's not gonna break the bank, if you will, but first thing in the morning, it fits with the cortisol peak, which then helps you feel more tired in the evening.
What does the sauna do related to sleep? Because I feel like if I'm gonna cold plunge after noon, then I'll cold plunge, but I'll finish on sauna, so that I'm just triggering my body, and this is of course just my body, but that basically that's like, okay, we did the hard thing, but now we're warm again, and it will be okay, and let's prepare to relax.
Yeah.
And get to sleep.
And think how much time do you spend in the cold plunge versus how much time you can spend in the sauna?
I usually do like a 5-minute and then a 15.
Yeah, exactly. So the cold is much more stressful, whereas the sauna is a little more relaxing. Again, bringing you back up to temperature. You're sweating stuff out. You're doing some of the work that your body is going to do when you're sleeping anyways. Because sleep usually is a driver of clean, heal, prepare. Whereas when you're in the sauna, it's helping like the beta amyloid plaques that are associated with Alzheimer's. We now know that the person, Mr. Alzheimer, who published the first study 20 years ago about the formation of these beta amyloid plaques and all the money that went to that was completely fraudulent. He just lost his Ph.D. He can't practice anymore. It wasn't until 2024, 2025, 20 years later, all this money wasted. But we're realizing that when you sleep or when you're in the sauna, it helps break down any of those beta amyloid plaques or proteins as you start to get older, the ones that aren't broken down and rebuilt, part of them will start to like break off and create these what they call intrinsically disordered regions, where now you just kind of have this arm of amino acids that can do random chemistry with whatever's around. Where usually proteins are very like shape specific. Like the square goes in the square hole, you can't put it through the rectangle hole, right? But as you start to get proteins that have a part that's dangling, then now it can interact with other stuff, and it can create those fibers, which then puts pressure on the nervous system. Just like chiropractors push the bone back to try to relieve pressure of the nerves, it's the same thing. The fibers will push and then prevent the brain from functioning, which then leads to memory loss and stuff like that. When you sleep, your spinal fluid washes your brain and pulls some of those plaques back. So that's why first thing in the morning it's so valuable to move, to sweat, get that lymphatic system going to get rid of those waste materials. But the sauna also helps break down those proteins to get rid of it. And I think that's part of the reason it pairs well with feeling like sleep is easier, because you've kind of done a few of those steps that you're going to do during sleep anyways. So now it's like, oh, it's kind of like a nighttime routine. You're like, oh, okay, I've already done this. You come home and you're like, oh, the hubby or whoever, the kids, they already did the dishes. They already cooked it. It's one less thing I have to do. You're like, great. Yeah, cool.
I didn't know sauna was connected to Alzheimer's. That's really cool.
Oh, yeah. Thor, Chris Hemsworth, he apparently has some gene that predisposes him to die early. So because you think like, oh, he's Thor, like that's never gonna happen. And he's like, oh, genetically. Same with Angelina Jolie. She had a gene that made her more likely to get breast cancer. But just because you have a gene doesn't mean it's turned on or off or is gonna be expressed. Like every cell in your body has the entire copy of all your DNA, but your eye looks very different than your kidney, looks very different than your toe, right? Because you take that 3 feet of DNA and you wrap it up and you only have certain parts of it that you read. So just because the gene is there doesn't mean it'll ever actually be turned on. It's just you have a chance of it. And most of those genes aren't beneficial to the cell. So unless the cell gets really, really stressed and it can't function properly, then it'll turn the gene on and your immune system won't be able to recognize it, and then it starts to get worse and worse and worse. But if you're healthy and you eat the right foods and you learned all this in high school and you just take care of yourself and you have a little bit of stress here and there that's manageable, cold plunge, sauna, then your body can fight all that off. You support your immune system, it's not a big deal. So, but there's a whole documentary about him and all the things that he was doing, and sauna and cold plunge were two of the big things that he was talking about. And then the lymphatic system, not wearing running shoes a lot because that cushions, so then it changes the way you step. Then because you change the way you step, it changes the way your bones go, and then because your bones change, then the way you step different, and then it puts more pressure on your hips, and then your back, and then your spine, and then your nervous system, and now your nervous system isn't communicating with itself, and it all comes back down to your shoes.
So you should really only wear them when you're running?
Yeah, so when you're running, or just like walk barefoot when you can.
Like a grounding mat.
Yeah, grounding mat. There's an exercise where you can just like get a towel, and sometimes I'll do this like while I'm brushing my teeth, and I'll like get the towel, and you just use your toes, and you just like pull the towel in, and you just roll it all the way back. And it's just little things to where you're using those muscles that you don't normally use. Another thing, jumping. Jumping is awesome, especially for women, because you tend to lose muscle mass and bone density faster, especially if you've ever had a kid, because where the kid get all the bone from? From you. Where to get all the minerals from? From you. Yeah. Yeah, 100% literally, yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. So jumping helps stimulate new bone growth, strengthens your tendons, ligaments, your whole fascia system.
Like, is it better to jump rope or like rebounding? Does it matter?
Both are great. Rebounding is good because it puts all of your cells on the same page, so it increases communication. But it,
By rebounding,
like the little trampolines, the small ones where you're just like, yeah. The shaker thing helps too.
Power play.
But yeah, I mean, really just any kind of bouncing. Because think about it, when you're walking, let's say, and you like step off a curb and you like catch yourself, or something drops and you're like Spider-Man. You're not using muscle. That's all fascia. Fascia doesn't respond to weight stimuli. Responds to quick movements. So if you're bouncing, you're stimulating that fascia to catch yourself, and that affects every single bone and all the tissue all the way up. So it slows down the rate of osteoporosis. It triggers your body to grow new bone cell, new fascia. Yeah, so jumping is good, and it's free. I like that. This is like $70 a month. But if you were to buy a good quality fish oil, a probiotic, a digestive enzyme, vitamins and minerals that don't have all the junk in it, and like I was saying, it has all these like known.
Have you heard of First Form?
Yeah, First Form. Yeah.
Is it comparable to that? 'Cause it has like the.
Yes and no. So First Form uses a lot of canola oil, which is very processed. So it's one of those like, it's not the worst thing, and the amount that's in there is relatively small, but it's one of those like, there's so many better options that are almost the same price, but now everyone's attacking canola oil, so it's just cheap. So they're getting tons of it for cheap, and they're just rolling with it. First Form has also been bought out and owned by one of the big BlackRock companies. Most of the health food companies and organic companies have been bought out by some company or some shell company that's owned by Pfizer or Procter & Gamble. So you're just feeding money into these guys. They're owned by three. They're international. So even if in the U.S. they're like, well, no, the whole rest of the world still likes this stuff. And everything's from food. Like on here it's saying like glycoprotein matrix for all the B vitamins. The B vitamins are extracted out of like algae and yeast and different plants. Yeah, so you can get on a subscription. It's cheaper if you get the subscription, just like Amazon or anywhere else. And the way the company set up is you can pay like $30 a year and then get the wholesale price, or you can just buy it, the retail. And if you do the subscription, it's like somewhere in the middle. So that way if you're like, well, I want to try it, but I don't want to like fully commit, then you can do that. But yeah, so this is my like base. And then they just recently came out with this dropper that is their GLP-1 mimetic. Your body turns on GLP-1 whenever you have proteins, fats, bitter foods. The peptides in here are from fish. So they chopped them up, it's fish. Those peptides bind to the same receptors that GLP-1 does and the synthetic GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic. It binds to the same receptors. It's transported, those fish proteins, instead of being digested in your gut, it's transported in because they have extracts of mushroom, which kind of encapsulate it, so it makes it through your digestive tract, and then those peptides make it into your gut. So now instead of having to take a needle This is a dropper where you're getting those peptides that turn on your own production of GLP-1, but it also has a bitter compound. It's an extract from hops that turns on your own production of GLP-1. So now the inside of the cell is already doing GLP-1 stuff when the peptides bind to the outside, so now it's a synergistic effect. And then my favorite part really is it has ginseng, which gives you energy, it supports mood, and it also has saffron. Saffron's a pain in the ass to buy because there's so many cheap stuff out there, and then when you find good quality stuff, it's like $100 and something. You're like, that's insane. So this has all the third-party testing. It's got saffron. It helps with cognition. It helps with brain fog. And again, it's a fluid dropper. So it's like $75 per bottle. And it says on here you can take it before each meal. 99% of the people that I know that have been taking it, they just take it once a day, usually like in the morning. What I do is food noise. I've been good all day. I exercised in the morning. I ate my good food. I did all my stuff, and it's nighttime. Kids are home. I'm like, man. And all of a sudden, I walked out. I'm like, oh, someone just made brownies? And I'm like, man, bedtime's in like 30 minutes. So I'll take literally like a quarter dropper of this and then just try to get away from the kitchen. And when I come back, I don't feel the same urge. It's not like, hey, you're hungry. Because again, I turn on my own GLP-1 production, and GLP-1 tells you you're satiated, you're full, you don't need any more food, you've got some stuff to burn, you're gonna be okay. And then that way I'm not eating right before bed, which is gonna spike my insulin and prevent me from getting into deep sleep. So that's what I use it for. But when I was in Idaho, this got really popular when I was up there, and the amount of people, before and after pictures were like, they're losing weight, and it's like, usually most things are like, oh, hey, look, I lost all this weight in the first usually that's like water weight, and you're like not drinking pop, but that continued like week after week after week change on the scale, and you're seeing body shape change. I was like, okay, I can tell you about the science all day. But the people I know were like, both couples are like, hey, this makes a big difference.
It doesn't have the side effect of the muscle loss?
Yes, yeah. So the saffron and the ginseng actually help support muscle growth and stimulation. So the GLP-1 says, hey, you've got enough nutrients. So just like artificial sweeteners, if I say sugar's on the way, then your cells say, okay, sugar's on its way, I'm gonna spend money because payday's coming. But then sugar never shows up, you never get paid. So now you've got to go borrow money, you've got to borrow something from someone else to patch up what you did because you didn't actually get paid. Synthetic GLP-1s stay in your system for days. So you're telling your body, you've got nutrients. So yeah, sure, you're burning fat because that's a storage, but if you're not also getting protein in, then you're going to start to use your muscle, your reserve of protein, and then so that's where the muscle wasting comes in. Most people, 40% of their weight loss is muscle, which muscle is a hormone generator. Just like your other organs generate hormones, every time you contract a muscle, you're literally putting out peptides that circulate through your whole body, that increase brain growth, that support your immune system, that do all these awesome things. So again, exercise. You got to move every day. Just do something.
That doesn't last as long in your body.
It doesn't last, yeah, because it's fish, mushroom, saffron, hops, and then ginseng. So it's just food, but it's supporting your body's own communication, and then the breakdown product is just food. So it's not on as long, so it lets you dose as you want or need, and you avoid the needles, and you avoid the muscle loss because it's not telling you, you've got it, like you will eventually get hungry again that day. It just tapers it. So.
Were all the supplements from the same company?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah, I have friends all the time. Yeah, 3. So they call that GLP-3, which most scientists are really upset about because GLP-1 is the gene name, glucagon-like protein or peptide 1. So GLP-2 should be another gene that codes for another protein, just like GLP-3, but the name of the company is 3, so they called it GLP-3, which technically doesn't exist. So all my scientist friends are like, I hate marketing people, and I'm like, I get it. It's fair. And then Yeah, I put this up earlier. I wasn't sure who else would be here, but the general idea is, yeah, like sauna, you're increasing the heat shock proteins. You've got removal of the heavy metals, protein turnover, supports mitochondrial function to remove all those, lymphatic drainage. Like every single thing here is awesome. It does so many things. One thing I really like.
Have the compression on there. Does the compression not?
Well, compression, massage.
He was focused on
Yeah,
the
so
tonight. There's
when I first got, I noted that I worked for NASA for a while looking at microgravity. And so the idea is anytime you put pressure on your cells, you jump, you bounce, you squeeze, your cells are responding to that pressure, and they're building up all these roads and infrastructure that allows the cell to do DNA damage, get rid of toxins, support metabolism, all the stuff it needs to do. So any kind of pressure is beneficial, and that's where the compression or the massage or even just rolling things out comes in. So they're one and the same.
So my plan is to come once a week.
Nice.
Is that enough to see a benefit?
Oh yeah, 100%. So
Or is there
there's definitely some studies out. There's one from like Finland where people go every single day, and I think there's like 80,000 people in the study. It's huge, but it's just the Finnish people, and they do sauna every day, and they have all these amazing benefits from it. Because again, they've supplemented a lifestyle activity to get rid of heavy metals and toxins. So their gene profile doesn't support heavy metals and toxins as well. So we know that some people are really good at getting heavy metals out, other people aren't, and that's kind of where the vaccine controversy comes in, because it's a lot of people got vaccines but don't have autism. But when you look at the people that do and their gene profile and their ability to get heavy metals out, most of them that are on the spectrum have the genes that prevent them from getting heavy metals out. So if you know anyone that's a little on the spectrum, the Purify, cilantro, parsley, activated charcoal, the more you can, a sauna, cold plunge, anything you can do to actively start getting those heavy metals out is going to help them have more proteins that are working properly. It may not be the only driver, but adding heavy metals in means proteins don't work. Genetic mutation means proteins don't work. So, I think I forgot your question.
I was just asking about the number of
Should you
times.
go
you
more?
Oh, number of times, yeah. So, especially if you're just starting, I think once a week is great. It's a good starting point. And then if you, like, you're a parent, are you training for anything, or are you just trying to be healthy, or?
I did the Cap 10K race, and that's
Oh,
how
nice.
I started. But I just do that once a year.
Okay.
I'm just trying to maintain as I'm getting older.
Okay. Yeah, no, once a week is a great way to start. Again, the more that you can sweat, you can get cold, you can stimulate these processes, you can cause just a little bit of stress in your body in a controlled, safe environment, the more that you can support the mitochondrial health. Yeah,
I'll just throw in
I think you
sorry,
saw.
shameless plug.
Oh yeah.
I'm the owner. We did just start opening in the mornings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and to support that new shift, we rolled out a new membership that is 8X. So but it's only during those morning hours, and it's like ends up being $18 a visit. It's the cheapest version that we have, but it's just for Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 10. So if you want to try out what would happen if I came twice a week and how would I feel with that, now's a good time to just play with that if you want
Oh, yeah.
more than once a week.
Yeah.
And it also plays into your earlier question of what if I did it in the morning as opposed
Yeah.
to later in the night.
Yeah.
Because then you could just start your day with cold plunge and sauna and
Yeah.
see how that affects
Yeah,
you.
spike your cortisol, get all the waste out, all the sweat, all the red light. Yeah, just be good, be ready.
I think
Get
too,
out and get it over with. Does the
Yeah.
compression help with the lactic acid? Like,
So there's a bit of a misnomer with lactic acid. So your body wants to put things into the mitochondria, but if there's not enough oxygen, then you have to make lactic acid to keep making ATP, and then that lactic acid can change the pH. But it doesn't stay acidified. If your whole cell dramatically shifted to the pH of lactic acid, then everything would start to fall apart. So a lot of the soreness doesn't actually come from lactic acid, but from the immune response later on. So if you're exercising and you tear muscle, your body has to rebuild it. It makes all these scaffoldings and then puts the new cells in. And then your immune system comes and clears that out. So if you ever do a leg day and like 2 days later, you're like, man, I'm really sore. That's your immune system coming in and clearing things up. The lactic acid was initial shift in pH, but then your body pulled minerals from your bones or from your following meal to adjust the pH back to where it was. So that soreness comes from the exertion overall, and your body, it's a symptom. Your body's saying, hey, you just did some strenuous exercise. I need time to heal, to repair, to adapt so that you can do that again, because you just keep sending me to the gym or you keep doing whatever that's tiring out. So the lactic acid doesn't stay. The benefit still comes from having the compression, the massage, the rolling it out, because as that scaffolding comes in and as that fascia gets in, you can think of fascia like a sleeve, and it'll wrap around muscle. You can tear the muscle down and you can try to grow new muscle cells, but if you didn't also move the fascia, the muscle is just going to push against the fascia, which is then going to push against the nerve, which makes it sore, and then eventually your body's going to find a new equilibrium and that push on the nerve is going to go away. So the compression, the rolling it out is helping your body get back to that equilibrium, but then you're still preventing muscle from being able to growing because the fascia is holding it all together. Like fascia literally winds in between muscle, through the bone. It's insane.
And it has to be stimulated different ways, like a pull, right? And like a
Yeah. So fascia is more of, the jump, the pull, the bounce, the quick movements. I've seen stuff where you don't have them here, like the bouncy balls, where you kind of lay on your back and then you lift a leg up and like you slam it down as quick as you can. So it's that quick reactionary movement. The same as if you were going to like fall off of an edge.
The ball just the other day.
Yeah, just
Where they were
do.
bouncing their
Right.
heel, a volleyball player.
Yeah, so
Their heel just
that-
to get speed.
Yeah, that's the kind of impact that makes the fascia tear. So then when you grow new muscle, it can push against it. Because a lot of people are like, man, I've been going to the gym, but I'm not seeing the results. And it's like, yeah, you're burning fat, cool, but you're not putting on a lot of muscle because the fascia is not, it's preventing you. So you could also do things like when you exercise, get that full range of motion. So I've seen people doing deadlifts where they're like lifted up, so that way they're stretching all the way down, because that stretch is going to put more pressure on the fascia. So then you can make little tears and make room to then put the muscle in, and then you roll it out afterwards, and that helps kind of just knead it all and smooth it back. So.
Did your phone turn? I don't know.
Oh, I
Turn it off.
did something.
Okay. It just messed with that.
Yeah, here's all the science you missed earlier.
So let's all jump on the vibration plate before we leave.
Yeah. That's one thing I usually always do, but you guys are so comfy, is I like to have people stand up at some point. Your calves have specialized receptors where they don't need insulin to pull glucose out of your circulation. So you can just do calf raises, and it's going to support your blood glucose levels. Your calves are one of the most dense muscles on your body. So when I'm cooking, especially when I'm about to eat like a bigger meal, I always like to move my calves a little, because then I'm pulling that glucose out. I'm getting my body ready. If you sit for more than like an hour, they say you should get up and move your calves. If you don't want to be awkward about it, you can just like do little shin raises, like while you're sitting, like under the table. And then of course, any kind of bouncing. All that, your calves are like it's the one muscle that has a lot of the GLUT4 transporters that can bring sugar in, but don't need insulin there first. So it helps prevent insulin resistance and prevent all the damage from the sugar that's caused. So yeah, calves are awesome. And I've never met anyone that's upset about having sexy calves. So do calves. And then another fun free thing is humming generates nitric oxide, which lowers your blood pressure and helps dilate your veins. So you can just hum your favorite song as you're cooking and just kind of dancing a little, and all of a sudden you're doing things that support your health
What about chewing gum?
that are free.
Does-
So yeah, chewing helps a little, because you make that little noise, you're breathing through your nose more. The hiccup is that most gums have a lot of plastics and rubbers, which mimic estrogen. So if you want a little extra estrogen, you can eat soy, you can chew gum, you can heat a plate on plastic, and you can get some of that estrogen in. But I would avoid most gums. And there's even like these like plastic and rubber things you can like chew on to strengthen your jaw. Just eat a carrot. Just chew your food until it's a mush, right? You're gonna get a jaw workout if you thoroughly chew your food. But yeah, calves are awesome. And again, it's free. I'm all about the free stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So much.
Oh yes. Yeah, I had that, and then that QR goes to my website, my phone number, all of my socials. I put a lot of videos up on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. My wife's like, you should really charge for all this. I'm like, well, if I can get Facebook and Instagram to pay me, then like I can still talk about it, and they're giving me money.
We're the newbie, we can charge us.
Oh. Yeah, there are a few things that I do. One of them is just access. So usually it would be like $50 the first month and then $25 a month after that, where you send me pictures of your food, your activities, your work.